Welcome to today's deep dive. We're really glad you're here because today our mission is to examine a really compelling piece of source material.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one.
It really is. We're looking at a sermon from Pastor Chris Myers of Dwell City Church,
Mm.
and he's meticulously unpacking the historical and, the theological layers of John chapter 19, verses 16 through 30.
Right, the crucifixion narrative.
Exactly. Our goal for you today is to pull back the curtain on the rich theological frameworks, the dense history, and honestly, the incredibly complex interpersonal dynamics happening in this text.
Because there is just so much going on under the surface.
So much. And we're exploring this material impartially, right? We want to understand exactly how and why this ancient narrative continues to exert this profound, almost gravity-like pull on billions of followers today.
And to really grasp his central thesis, we actually have to begin by looking at how he sets up the sheer scale of the event.
Right, the hook he uses.
Yeah, he doesn't start in ancient Rome or Jerusalem at all.
Yeah.
He starts his analysis with an analogy from modern history to illustrate a concept you're probably very familiar with, which is the butterfly effect.
Man, it is wild to think about how one single localized event can just completely rewrite the trajectory of the entire planet.
It really is.
I mean, picture this. It's June 28th, 1914. You are standing in the city of Sarajevo.
Okay, setting the scene.
Right. And there's this 19-year-old kid named Gavrilo Princip. He's harboring this immense anger about foreign rulers governing his country, and he makes a split-second decision.
A literal split second.
He steps out of a crowd and assassinates Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife.
Which is this incredibly localized, chaotic moment of violence. I mean, for that 19-year-old, the perceived scope of his action was likely super narrow.
He was just making a statement, right?
Exactly, a political statement to his local government. He couldn't possibly fathom the cascading domino effect he had just initiated.
Because within weeks, that one isolated event triggers this massive entanglement of global alliances. Like, it literally sparks World War I.
The entire globe is suddenly plunged into an unprecedented conflict.
Yeah. Ancient empires fall, entire generations are lost, the borders of the world are permanently redrawn. The ripple effect of that single day fundamentally changed the reality of millions of people who had, never even heard of Sarajevo, let alone the Archduke.
And the speaker uses that exact historical domino effect to introduce his core argument about the crucifixion.
The ultimate butterfly effect.
Right. He contends that this scene of ancient execution happening on a small hill outside Jerusalem 2,000 years ago is the single most important event in human history.
That's a massive claim.
It is. The theological argument is that this localized event was intentionally designed to change the spiritual and practical reality of everything. For everyone, for all time.
So what does this all mean? Like,
Yeah.
how does the execution of a single figure in an ancient Roman province actually carry that kind of world-altering weight?
To build that case, the speaker first anchors the brutal physical reality of the cross to some incredibly deep historical patterns.
Right, zooming in on the narrative details.
Yeah, the narrative zooms in on Jesus carrying his own cross to a location called Golgotha, which translates to the place of the skull.
Now, historically speaking, making the condemned carry their own cross bearing to the execution site was pretty standard Roman practice, wasn't it?
It was very much part of the public humiliation process.
Right.
But the speaker highlights a fascinating biblical callback here that fundamentally changes how the original audience would have read the scene. He points directly back to the book of Genesis.
Oh, specifically the narrative of Genesis 22.
Exactly.
The story of Abraham and Isaac.
Yeah. In that ancient text, God tests Abraham by asking him to sacrifice his one and only son, Isaac. And the parallels the speaker draws between that moment and Golgotha are incredibly specific.
Because they're not just vague thematic similarities.
No, they are deliberate. In Genesis, Isaac is made to carry the wood for his own sacrifice on his back, and they are trekking up a mountain called Mount Moriah.
And Mount Moriah is the exact same geographical location as Golgotha.
Yes.
I mean, the geographical overlap alone is striking.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, for the speaker and for the original Jewish audience, this overlap isn't just a literary coincidence. It is profound theological foreshadowing.
Like a setup and a punchline thousands of years apart.
Exactly. Because in the Genesis narrative, just as Abraham is about to sacrifice Isaac, God intervenes. He provides a ram caught by its horns in a thicket to serve as the sacrifice instead.
Right, a substitute.
The speaker contends that this ancient story was a precursor. as historical placeholder. Their ram caught in the thorns was setting the stage for Jesus, who is now walking up that exact same hill, wearing a crown of thorns, carrying the wood.
Acting as the ultimate final sacrifice provided by God. It operates like a narrative echo that's been ringing for millennia before finally hitting its target. But looking at the source material, I have to push back a little on the sheer brutality of the method chosen.
Okay, go for it.
The speaker notes that while he was prepping this talk, he actually researched the worst punishments in human history.
Yeah, I remember that part.
And Roman crucifixion topped the list, beating out medieval torture wheels and Vlad the Impaler. So my question is, if we are looking at this from the perspective of a sovereign God orchestrating a plan to save humanity, why pick the absolute worst era of torture?
It's a fair question.
I mean, couldn't a sovereign God have chosen an era with, like, lethal injection? Or just a simpler stoning? Why maximize the physical suffering?
The speaker actually addresses that visceral reaction directly.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, his synthesis is that the extreme physical torture was chosen intentionally to physically manifest the actual cost of sin.
Okay, unpack that for me.
From this theological standpoint, sin isn't categorized as just some minor behavioral mistake or a little lapse in judgment. It is defined as a profound spiritual treason against the creator of the universe.
So the punishment has to match the severity of the crime.
Right. The horrific nature of the crucifixion is meant to be a visual, tangible representation of how destructive, severe, and frankly ugly human rebellion actually is.
So it acts as a mirror held up to humanity.
Exactly.
But wait, if you're telling me Roman crucifixion is the absolute physical ceiling for human suffering.
Which it arguably is.
Right, and yet the speaker argues the physical pain wasn't even the worst part for Jesus.
He does argue that, yes.
Then the text must be pointing to a metaphysical suffering, right? Something deeply psychological or spiritual.
You've hit the nail on the head regarding the theology of the text. According to the speaker, the true terror, the reality that caused Jesus to experience that medical phenomenon of sweating drops of blood in the garden the night before.
Which is terrifying just to think about.
Right. It was not the anticipation of the nails. It was the impending reality of divine wrath.
Divine wrath.
Yeah, this is the theological concept that he was about to spiritually absorb the concentrated cosmic judgment for all of humanity's historical and future rebellion.
So it's not just the cross, it's the weight of everything.
The speaker points out a really key detail here. There were two other criminals being crucified right next to Jesus, enduring the exact same horrific physical torment.
Good point.
Yet we have no record of them sweating blood in sheer terror beforehand. The unique, crushing agony Jesus faced was cosmic isolation, not just the physical destruction.
Wow. And while that massive cosmic weight is bearing down on him, the reality of what this execution means on a purely human level is playing out right above his head.
The contrast there is just staggering.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Right above Jesus, there is a literal, petty geopolitical power struggle happening over a piece of wood.
You're talking about the inscription placed on the cross by Pilate, the Roman governor.
Yeah. Exactly. Pilate writes a sign and has it nailed above Jesus. It reads, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews."
And he makes sure everyone can read it.
Right. He intentionally writes it in 3 languages, Aramaic, Latin, and Greek, guaranteeing that virtually every single person walking past this execution site knows what it says.
And the chief priests representing the local religious establishment are absolutely furious about this.
And they march right up to Pilate and demand a revision.
They do. They insist the sign should read, "He said, I am King of the Jews."
To which Pilate basically issues a flat refusal. He just says, "What I have written, I have written."
It is an absurd moment of irony in the narrative.
It totally is. You have a figure enduring the cosmic weight of the universe's sin, and the political leaders of the day are what? Bickering over the phrasing on a wooden sign?
It's remarkably petty.
It's like 2 rival executives arguing over a font choice on a termination letter. Like they're fighting over Arial versus Times New Roman while the entire company goes under. But it's not really about the font, is it? It's a calculated display of absolute supremacy.
That corporate dominance analogy perfectly captures the human power dynamics the speaker is unpacking.
Glad it works.
To fully grasp why they are arguing over this sign, we really have to look at the historical context of Passover.
The city would have been packed, right?
Beyond packed. During this festival, the population of Jerusalem would swell massively with Jewish pilgrims from all over the known world. It was a historically precarious, highly volatile time for the Romans. They were constantly terrified of a riot breaking out.
So the chief priests want the sign change because they need to manage the crowd.
Yes,
They are utilizing this execution as a massive public deterrent.
they want to send a crystal clear message to the hundreds of thousands of pilgrims in town. Look what happens if you claim to be a king and threaten the status quo. Don't even try it.
They need it explicitly stated that Jesus is a fraud.
Exactly, to squash any lingering revolutionary ideas before they start.
But Pilate refuses to change the text because he is playing his own game.
Pilate uses the inscription to assert Roman dominance over those very same Jewish leaders.
A total power play.
By leaving it as the king of the Jews, Pilate is making a very public, brutal demonstration of state power. He is essentially saying to the millions of gathered Jews, here is your supposedly mighty king. Look at what Rome does to your king. We dictate reality here.
Wow. They are literally playing political chess, using a dying man as a pawn.
The speaker draws a sharp contrast here between this frantic, insecure human scrambling for power and the posture of Jesus.
Because Jesus isn't fighting back.
Right. Everyone around the cross is desperately trying to assert control over the narrative, but the theological argument presented is that Jesus is the only one actually in control, willingly submitting to the execution to fulfill a much larger divine mission.
Which brings us from the political maneuvering happening above the cross right down to the dirt at the foot of it.
As seen on the ground.
Because the contrast between human selfishness and the nature of Jesus only sharpens as we look at the ground-level grunts. The source text paints this stark, split-screen scene of the people standing merely feet away from the execution.
On one side, you have a detachment of 4 Roman executioners.
And the text describes their complete callousness.
They take Jesus' clothes and divide them into 4 piles as their rightful plunder. But they reach his inner tunic, which the text notes is seamless, woven in one continuous piece from top to bottom.
So they don't want to ruin it.
Right. Instead of tearing it into 4 useless rags, they sit at the foot of the cross and cast lots. They essentially roll dice to see who gets to take it home intact.
And the speaker notes this detail is a direct fulfillment of an ancient prophecy found in Psalm 22.
Yes, he does.
But I have to ask, why does the speaker spend so much time highlighting these specific ancient callbacks? I mean, why does fulfilling a line from a random psalm matter so much to the overarching thesis?
Well, the speaker doesn't just point out Psalm 22 as a neat piece of biblical trivia.
Okay.
For the original Jewish audience, prophetic alignment was the ultimate mechanism of validation. Fulfilling these ancient texts wasn't viewed as a coincidence. It was the cryptographic key proving he was exactly who he claimed to be.
Oh, like a signature authenticating his identity.
Every fulfilled prophecy was exactly that.
That makes the mechanics of the text much clearer. But just on a psychological level, the coldness of those guards is staggering.
It's chilling.
It's akin to a group of onlookers haggling over the price of a victim's shoes at an active crime scene, completely oblivious to the gravity, the history, and the absolute horror of what is happening inches above them.
They are driven entirely by the instinct of self-preservation and personal gain.
Right.
What's fascinating here is how the source contrasts that ultimate display of human self-interest with the scene unfolding on the other side of the cross.
The other half of the split screen.
Exactly. Standing near those soldiers are 4 women, including 3 named Mary, his mother, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. Beside them stands the disciple John, referred to in the text as the disciple whom he loved.
And in the middle of this agonizing process, Jesus actually speaks from the cross directly to his mother.
He does.
He says, "Woman, behold your son," indicating John. And to John, he says, "Behold your mother."
To fully grasp the gravity of this exchange, the speaker emphasizes a vital piece of cultural context.
Which is?
In ancient Jewish society, your biological lineage and your genealogy were the bedrock of everything.
It wasn't just about who you ate Thanksgiving dinner with.
Not at all. Your biological family dictated your identity, your social support system, your financial survival, your inheritance. It was the absolute core of their societal structure.
And from a purely biological standpoint, Jesus wasn't an only child, right? The broader text indicates he had biological brothers, including James.
Exactly. By standard societal custom, a biological brother like James should have been the one legally and culturally bound to take care of Mary as an aging widow.
Okay, so why John?
The speaker points out a crucial narrative detail. At this specific point in the timeline, James is not yet a follower of Jesus' message.
Oh, okay.
So in this incredibly painful final moment, Jesus actively dismantles the traditional biological family structure.
He just bypasses it entirely.
He bypasses biological duty and assigns the lifelong care of his mother to John, a spiritual believer. The argument is that he is actively replacing a biological family tree with a new spiritual family tree.
Now, if you are listening to this and wondering, why does a 2,000-year-old family dispute matter to my life today?
Right. What's the application?
The speaker makes a direct, incredibly practical psychological connection here for you. He argues that most of our modern anxiety comes from the exact same instinct of self-preservation that drove those Roman guards to roll dice for a tunic.
We are constantly clawing for our own survival.
Exactly. The speaker suggests that the modern faith community, the church, is meant to function as this new spiritual family modeled at the cross.
A community built on care.
If you are part of a community where everyone is fundamentally devoted to carrying each other's burdens, the baseline anxiety of survival fundamentally changes. The raw selfishness disappears because you no longer have to fight alone.
It is a radical, profound redefinition of human relationships birthed in the middle of a brutal execution.
It really is.
And with his mother's care resolved, the narrative shifts to the final climactic moments on the cross. The tension between Jesus' intense human frailty and his divine cosmic mission reaches its absolute peak.
Because the physical toll finally breaks through the surface, doesn't it?
It does.
Jesus says, "I thirst," which the speaker again notes fulfills another ancient text, Psalm 69, continuing that mechanism of prophetic validation.
And the guards lift up a sponge full of sour wine on a hyssop branch.
The speaker really emphasizes this moment, right? To prove a theological point.
Yes, he does. He emphasizes it to show that Jesus wasn't some glowing, immune divine phantom hovering above the pain.
He was feeling everything.
He was fully human, feeling the severe dehydration, the blistering heat of the Middle Eastern sun, and the complete physical exhaustion of his body failing.
And immediately after receiving the sour wine, he utters what the speaker identifies as the most important phrase in the entire text.
He says, "It is finished."
And then, crucially, the text says he gave up his spirit.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the speaker makes a very specific, deliberate point about the phrasing, "gave up his spirit."
Right.
The text doesn't say he finally succumbed to his injuries or merely faded away into unconsciousness.
It wasn't passive.
Exactly. The theological argument the speaker presents is that Jesus was in active, sovereign control until the very last millisecond. He consciously chose the exact moment of his death.
Wow.
But the phrase, "it is finished," translated from the ancient word to elestai, carries massive theological mechanics in this sermon.
How so?
The speaker contends that this wasn't just a sigh of relief. It wasn't a man saying, "My physical suffering is finally over." It was a declaration of substitutionary atonement.
Atonement.
He is declaring that the metaphysical debt for human sin, every transgression past, present, and future, has been completely paid in full. The transaction was finalized.
Done.
There's no extra punishment required, no secondary suffering to be endured in hell. The mission was entirely accomplished.
Okay, I have to pause here and challenge the logic of that mechanism, because this is the exact intersection where a lot of people examining this theology get deeply tripped up.
It's a common stumbling block, yeah.
The speaker asserts that the debt for future sins, meaning sins committed by people living centuries or millennia after this event, was completely paid 2,000 years ago.
That is the claim.
If a believer's future mistakes are already paid for long before they are even born, isn't that just a free pass to do whatever you want?
I see where you're going.
I mean, if the tab is permanently covered, what is stopping someone from just living recklessly?
This raises an important question, and it is a tension the speaker anticipates and directly addresses in the source.
Okay, what's his answer?
He clarifies the psychological mechanism behind this belief. Knowing your debt is paid isn't a license to exploit the system. Rather, it is designed to be a profound release from an oppressive psychological burden.
Like taking off a heavy backpack.
Exactly. If you genuinely believe the debt is paid, you are released from living a defeated life that is constantly ruled by the anxiety of shame, the weight of guilt, and the paralyzing fear of an angry, punishing deity.
So it fundamentally changes the core motivation of the individual.
It transforms a believer's relationship with God from one rooted in fear and the ongoing reality of spiritual treason into a relationship driven entirely by deep gratitude and worship.
That makes sense.
The speaker argues that if you truly grasp the agonizing cosmic and physical cost of what was paid on your behalf, the natural human response isn't to cynically take advantage of it.
You wouldn't want to.
Right. The response is absolute awe and an overwhelming desire to honor that sacrifice with your life. It's about total, permanent reconciliation.
Well, we started this deep dive exploring the concept of the butterfly effect through Gavrilo Princip.
Right. The assassination in Sarajevo.
One 19-year-old making a localized choice that echoed across the globe, rearranging empires and starting World War I. And throughout this analysis, we have traced the speaker's argument for an infinitely larger historical ripple effect.
Much larger.
We examined a figure bearing his cross up a hill, intentionally echoing ancient narratives from Genesis to validate his mission. We explored the concept of him enduring not just the pinnacle of physical torture, but a staggering cosmic weight of judgment.
And we analyzed the layers of geopolitical theater playing out right above his head, with Pilate and the religious establishment cynically leveraging a public execution to manage crowds and display absolute supremacy.
We observed the stark contrast at the foot of the cross, too.
We did.
On one side, the cold, self-preserving callousness of soldiers haggling over a piece of clothing. On the other, the radical grace of a dying man redefining the very concept of family, establishing a new spiritual lineage based on mutual burden-sharing care instead of biological duty.
And finally, we unpacked the massive theological mechanics contained in those three final words. It is finished. A declaration meant to offer a permanent framework for freedom from guilt and complete reconciliation with the divine.
Whether you are listening to this and viewing this ancient text through a lens of deep personal faith, or evaluating it purely as a pivotal moment in human history, or even analyzing it as a masterclass in ancient literature, diving into these dense layers yields something deeply valuable.
It absolutely does.
It helps explain the enduring mechanics of this narrative. It reveals exactly how and why these ancient texts continue to offer millions of people around the globe today a robust, functional framework for building resilient communities, processing guilt, and finding peace.
The historical footprint of this single localized event, regardless of your personal theology or background, is undeniably staggering in its ongoing global impact.
It truly is. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you step back into your day.
Something to chew on.
Consider the profound paradox of the cross itself as an object. Just step back and analyze the symbol.
Yeah.
How utterly fascinating is it that an ancient instrument of torture, specifically designed by the Roman Empire to be the ultimate terrifying symbol of state power and total human defeat, was entirely flipped.
Flipped on its head.
It was transformed by these events into a universal, enduring symbol of hope, sacrificial love, and the birthplace of a new spiritual family.
It is arguably the ultimate subversion of a symbol in human history.
It really is. And it challenges you to ask a question of your own life and your own narrative. What seemingly unchangeable, painful, or negative symbols in your own life might actually possess the hidden transformative power to be completely redefined?
Incredibly powerful perspective to consider.
Thanks for taking the plunge with us today. Keep diving deep.